to play for our next guest. Am I
We
right
do.
there?
We got to bring him in the right way.
Touchdown! San Francisco!
He has nearly 40 years of broadcasting in Northern California. The voice of the San Francisco 49ers, Greg Papa. Sponsored by Sunpoint Public Adjusters, the gold standard of the public adjusting industry.
Oh, yeah. We bring in our dear friend, voice of the 49ers. At least he got paid to watch the game last night, and he did a fine job at telling the story, painting. It was like Da Vinci painting a weed, like one of them, like not even a dandelion, like just some grass like in your lawn. Greg Papa joins us. Good morning, Mr. Papa.
Yeah, it wasn't a Sistine Chapel.
No.
Or is that Michelangelo? Which one of my favorites?
Yeah, one of them.
Maybe that was Mikey. Remember when the Niners used to score 4 touchdowns at open when we go, touchdown?
Yeah.
We barely got first downs. I got excited over first downs last night and only got 11 of those and 191 yards, and lowest for Kyle outside of any game when the quarterback got hurt in Philadelphia in the championship game. And, I'm from Buffalo. We like our indoor sports there because it's so cold. So we grew up doing a lot of bowling, always with a Jenny Cream Ale in my left hand, bowling ball in the right. And offensive football to me a lot when you have elite teams, and the Niners have been, where they're swimmer the game in Philadelphia last year. They scored 6 touchdowns on 6 straight possessions. To me, it's like, when you score a touchdown, you bowl a strike, you roll a strike. And when you kick a field goal, it's a spare. So last night we had no strikes. It was like everything was a gutter ball the whole night. And the Rams won the game with 4 spares, and the Niners only had 2 spares. So spare me. But, in reality, it was the weather was a lot of it. I mean, the first half was a slog. It did lighten up a little bit in the second half, but not good offensive football. And Brock Purdy in the rain or snow, it just has not turned out well for him.
Yeah, and the other part of the game too, Greg. I mean, I would say the Rams ran it a little bit better by the end. I mean, Kyron Williams got over 100. Garendo was okay. It never felt like the Niners could get anything going really on the ground yesterday.
No, they ran it much better, Jason, in the second half. That's where the game was won. Kyron Williams got to 29 carries in the game. He had 29 4 days before against Buffalo. He came back and ran 29 more, 96 hours or 99 with the length of the game. That's amazing, 58 carries. And they wore the Niners down, and where the game went sideways to what a great return by big play Dre Greenlaw, the law. The way he played that first half. At one point, they had him for 10 tackles. I don't know. It went down to 8. It's somehow. I don't know how they're counting. But he was all over the field. And then he came off the field on a 2nd and 1. There was a tackle, a check down to Blake Corum, the back, and he came over and made the hit on him. And when he got up, he walked directly off the field. And it wasn't the Achilles again, but it was the knee, left knee on that same side. And he came out of the game. And young linebacker D. Winters already a neck injury. And then, the news of the night, and I'm sure we'll have more today on Black Friday, Devondre Campbell just, refusing to go back and go into the game at all, walking off the field, being sent off the field, I think, and Demetrius Flanagan Fowles had to come in and play linebacker, and he's a good player. He also has a knee injury, so he was playing hurt, but he's a guy who was a safety early in his career who bulked up a little bit to become a linebacker, so I think once Sean McVay saw 57s out of the game, 45s in the game, let's run the ball. Let's run the ball right down their throats. And then in that drive where Greenlaw left and Demetrius came in was their 17-play drive. And they ran it 10 times on that drive, and there were a couple where they got it over the middle to Puka on middle screens and won a shallow cross, and they took advantage of where Greenlaw would have been. And then one play, their guard, Kevin Dotson, came over and just literally lifted Demetrius off the field and put him on his back. So that's where the game was lost a little bit. The lack of the 49ers running the ball, and their front is ferocious with all their young guys that play in the front 7. They got a bunch of them. Young and Verse are just monsters on the outside, but not having Dre Greenlaw and Devondre Campbell refusing to go into the game left the Niners with a light box playing, safety at linebacker, and they ran all over him.
Greg Papa joining us. Greg, you are not just a friend, but you've been a counselor for me through the years. I'm honestly doing okay. It's almost a relief. Now I can focus on the Lions and Bills and next year for my Niners. But when I do, I know we're not at a postmortem yet, but when I look back, and I truly believe they're last night ensured they won't make the playoffs. That's just my opinion. I can look at Dre Greenlaw. I can look at McCaffrey. I can look at Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk, and up and down and up and down and up and down. But then you add in the tragedy with Trent Williams, the tragedy with Mooney Ward. You add in the craziness of a guy not checking in. Oh, by the way, our first-round pick got shot in the chest, and that's like the 7th worst thing to happen to this team this year. Like, I don't know. You've been around a long time, football a long time. You've seen a ton of stuff. You're a walking encyclopedia. Have you seen many years that stack up like this one when it comes to just how crazy this year's been for the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, the one that's, where they went to the Super Bowl one year and the next year it spun out of control, but we had a global pandemic that year.
Yeah.
I mean, millions of people died. No one cared about football, but that was a lot of the same. It's hard. I wasn't around the team then. They got kicked out of Santa Clara. They had to go to Glendale, Arizona. Put that factor in. From like early December through the end of the year, they spent the holidays away from their families. Just insane. So, that year's a one-off. You're not going to have that for once every 100 years. So that was weird. I mean, you get bad years like this. The Warriors had a year. The Warriors go to 5 straight finals, and then Steph gets hurt. They move into a new building, and they go 15-50, the worst team in the NBA. I think it's the Rams had a year like this. Hell, the Rams won a Super Bowl. The next year they went 5-12. They had the worst Super Bowl winning hangover ever. And then the heartbreaking is the Niners didn't win the Super Bowl. We lost it in the overtime, and we scored first. So it's just there. It happens. It's a product of a lot of things. Guys wanting contracts, the success of 5 years run, 4 years, and the body. It's a viciously violent game. Their bodies break down. Trent Williams can't play. Brandon Ayuk can't play. Javon Hargrave, Christian McCaffrey, your best players, all your Pro Bowlers from last year that only missed a handful of games. It seemed like they've only played a handful of games. I mean, the best stat of all, last year, McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Debo combined to score 40 touchdowns. They've scored 2 this year. McCaffrey, none. Ayuk, none. And Debo's just, the Debo drop last night has taken over the Debo, dagger, the Debo dig, the in cut. So it is what it is. What I would say is they got to rebuild and retool this, and not a complete, you're not going to shoot a cannonball through the locker room, but, the Rams were the ones, they won a Super Bowl, right? And then what was their motto after that? F those draft picks. We're going to trade them all for Matthew Stafford and Jalen Ramsey, and we're going to star power you. Well, it worked. Odell Beckham Jr. got there. He wound up tearing his ACL. They had Donald. They had stars all over the place. They won. The next year, it crapped out. They went 5-12 after winning the Super Bowl. So what did they decide? Let's keep those draft picks. And let's draft Byron Young, 0. We'll put him at one end. Then the next year, let's draft Jared Verse, number 8. Let's put him at the other end. You want to run outside zone on those two jokers? Jeez, Jared Verse is going to pick you up and forklift you. Then, last year, let's draft Kobe Turner, the conductor, in the 3rd round. He'll blow up you inside. You have 2 sacks from inside. Let's draft Braden Fisk, number 55. How fast is that guy? So the Niners need to build it from the draft. Trading all those picks for Trey didn't work out. Brock saved you. But the way to build teams in sports, because it's cheap labor in a league where you have a hard cap, you need to be more discerning with the draft picks. You can't just give them all away. And the Rams are starting to reload because they draft these guys. They're developing these guys. And when you keep signing free agents, a lot of them are going to be good players. But every once in a while, you get a guy that just doesn't fit. And for whatever reason, doesn't want to come in and play a game when you absolutely have got to have him. And you need to win this game to keep your playoff hopes alive. You bring in a guy from the outside that you didn't raise and develop in your own building and teach him how you do things. These things happen. So it happens. It happened to the Rams. It happened to the Warriors. I can give you countless examples where it's happened. It's happened. Now, how do you respond? I think the way to do it is to do it internally and start to draft guys that really know how to play as 49ers and teach them how to play so they don't tap out in the middle of the game ever.
Greg, is there any part of this season in your mind of Brock Purdy's season that would give John Lynch any reason for hesitation on going forward with him?
Yeah, that's the tricky one. Jeez, I love Brock. I was on him before anybody else when I saw him in training camp and OTAs that rookie year. And I'm like, whoa, who's this guy? He's the one guy on the team that just goes through his progressions, boom, 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 and plays quarterback the way it's supposed to be played. But he's small and small hands. And then he got into games because of injury to Trey and Jimmy, and he balled out. We know the story. But there are moments where the weather's an issue. It's an issue. You're not going to play in dome stadiums in 80-degree California every week. You're going to have to go to Buffalo and even your own home stadium. It rains here, as we know. In December and January, it never stops. And the game he had in Cleveland last year on the shores of Lake Drury, ball coming out of his hand. He could not control the football. The home game against Green Bay, the divisional playoff last year, he put a glove on his left hand. It was raining, misting, and took it off after one series, didn't like it, could not control the ball. Figured it out at the very end. Went 6 out of 7 on the last drive to win the game. And the one miss was a drop by George Kittle. But then, you go to Buffalo in a snowstorm, and on the pullback, the ball slips out of his hands. Last night, trying to hit Kittle down the left sideline. It was tight coverage. I don't know how he got it so far down the field, Jace, but the ball just literally squirted out of his hands. And I didn't see obvious situations where he couldn't control it, but he missed throws. The one to Ricky right before they were going to try the Hail Mary on the outcut, and Ricky was hobbling, Ricky Pearsall, and looked like he went off with a knee after that. I don't know if he was slow getting to where he's supposed to be, but you got to hit that throw. He's a wide open pocket, U-shaped pocket, wide open. You got to hit it. And he missed him. And then he underthrew Ricky on the post route. The deep one that he got behind Keller Witherspoon could have been a touchdown. Obviously, the one to Darius Williams where, he threw it in over Jennings. And there was one to Debo over the middle last night. And the lack of size, sometimes you think when he's sitting in the midline, they call it the well, right in the pocket. Can he see over all these big guys? These guys are huge in there. And Brock is 6 feet 5/8 of an inch tall. And a couple of times before he got sacked, he literally jumped up off the ground like he was trying to see. I think he tried one pass when he jumped, like a jump shot, because I think he couldn't see where to go with the ball. He can't see from the midline. So I don't. He's gonna be the quarterback here, but I think you got to be creative how to move him, how to get him out of the pocket, how to sprint him, how to roll with him. If he is undersized and he has a hard time seeing, you got to give him a sight line. You got to move him. Drew Brees would get up on his tippy toes and make throws. But, Drew was so talented for so long. Honestly, if he was 6'4", 6'5", Drew Brees, and what was he, 6 feet flat? How many Super Bowls would that guy have won with Sean Payton in that offense and those receivers? He just in critical moments and big plays, the lack of height really came into being. And then, what he did with the hand size, how does he wear gloves? Does he learn to play with gloves for the tack? Tom Brady played with gloves. Peyton Manning played with gloves even indoors. He learned to play with gloves at all time. He's got to figure out a way to see better, and even in all kinds of weather, being able to just grip the football, which will allow him to grip it and rip it with confidence.
Worst places to be than Miami, right around Christmas time. Yeah. Get a win there. The season rolls on. Miami, the Lions, the Cardinals. And then
schedule, David. Tough schedule.
No, I'm with you, brother. Well, we'll get one more conversation in before Christmas, but in the meantime, fly out there safe, and we'll talk to you next week, my friend.
I know you guys love NBA up there. Raymond Ritter sent me a text about guys tapping out on a team. Remember the story of Cedric Ceballos years ago when he left the Lakers and went to Lake Havasu? Yeah. Just took off for like three days. Like, what's he doing?
That's right.
Is he jet skiing or what's he doing? Water skiing on Lake Havasu, and then he just came back and played like that never happened. So things do happen.
We'll never do it. We're never tapping out. That's for sure. Right, Papa. You show up, you do your show, you go home. That's part of being on a team, right?
That's it. That's it. Black Friday.
Right. Yeah.
Black Friday today. And it's also Friday the 13th. Yeah, maybe I won't do it. Maybe I'll go just hide under the bed today.
Well, we're all going to wrap ourselves in bubble wrap. We will talk to you next week, my friend. Thank you, sir.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
That is Greg Papa. We will take a break when